You guys, this week's guest is one of the coolest women I have ever met in my entire life. It is Ayesha Hussain, stuntwoman, actress, activist. We are talking about her time in Deadpool, what it was like to get into stunts at the age of 30, and raising awareness and increasing representation in the world of action. We talk about her mission, what she's going on to achieve next, and what it is like to learn how to ride a horse at 30 and not only ride, but ride upside down. I absolutely love this episode and I hope you do too. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
This is why I wouldn't start a podcast myself, because I would get cancelled within minutes. I should not be allowed to speak unfiltered ever.
Ayesha Hussain, welcome to She's Got Game.
It is I. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. We were saying earlier, you are the coolest guest we have had on today.
Oh, guys, stop
All
it.
the compliments to start.
God, continue. No, I'm joking.
What first drew you into the world of stunts?
Oh man, so there's no way to answer this in a short format because I wasn't really drawn towards the world of stunts, I think. I grew up just thinking it was an impossibility. Like I went to like pretty much every Marvel movie and grew up with Hong Kong cinema with my brother because he was super into action movies and I grew up watching it. But I was never a sporty kid. I didn't do anything physical and I never saw people like me on screen. So there was no merit in me training athleticism or even knowing that I had access to it because just most kids of diaspora, to be perfectly honest, struggle with athletic representation. And it's only really started diversifying, in my personal opinion, in like the last like 8-9 years. I mean, there wasn't even Olympic boxing for women until 11 years ago or something of that nature. Don't quote me on that because I've probably got the statistic wrong and I was trying to sound really smart and I'm really sorry immediately if I've got that wrong. But, you know, ultimately, diversity in sports, even from gender all the way through till ethnicity, has just not been there. So when I was growing up, I didn't see me. So I didn't really get drawn to the world of stunts. But I did a heritage dive in 2017 with my mum. And I kind of sat down with her and I was just like, okay, but where are we properly from? Like, I know we're Indian and Arab, but like, where are we like really from? Like, what is our ancestry? And she basically told me that the tribe that I'm from on my Indian side is Rajput. And they are the most prolific warrior clan in India. And their entire thing is sword combat. So I was like, okay, I've got no martial arts experience. By this point, to be fair, it is an interesting point to say that I was a professional knife thrower by this point, which I know requires more background, which I will probably loop back to at some point. Without context, that sounds insane. But yes, I was 27. I'd developed a career in professional weapons performing in a Western arts nature. And I was a professional cowboy on stage. So I did knife throwing, gunslinging, whip cracking, and then did this heritage dive. And my mum told me this and I was just desperate to get connected to my heritage with sort of like, this seems so bizarrely kismet that like I'm a weapons performer and by no linear means, which we'll get into with my actual story and how I got there was so bizarre. But yeah, like I did that and then I just started training sword. I found somebody on YouTube that was local, who also is a self-trained martial artist. So again, like kind of the wrong route, really. Like if I was to go back and any advice that I'd give myself then was be like, go and get a traditional martial arts background before you pick up a weapon. Thankfully, I was kind of idiot savant level good. And I got quite good. And because of that lack of diversity, a show called Brassic, a Sky TV show, required an action actor that was an Indian girl that was good with swords. And obviously there are a million of me running around. So I got directly cast for it. And the stunt coordinator on that, Nick Chopping, convinced me to start training for the stunt register, given I was 29 at this point. And I kind of looked at him and was just like, this is a crazy concept because I'm not an athlete. Like, I'm really not an athlete. I've not done nothing athletic my entire life. Like, I've trained weapons and I perform weapons, but, you know, again, none of those are like athletic based. They're all marksmanship. Every single weapon I've done is marksmanship based. But he basically was just like, this is a great age to start training. You've got natural talent. And that is how I fell into stunts. Pun intended.
What role would you say your background did then play in shaping your path?
Oh, man, it gave me kind of this consistent, perpetual vim that I had to do it for all the 7-year-old little me's that basically did not see me growing up. Because again, like, being a multi-hyphenate athlete in stunts, which is the like cost of entry, like it's not just like one skill set. You don't just have to be a martial artist or a high diver or a person that's amazing in vehicles. Like you have to be such a cross-board athlete to such a high level to be like a competent stunt performer. And for me, I was just like, the fuck, where do I start? This is crazy. And it's a lot to take on, even if you have a background in any of those skills. I had no background. I literally started boxing when I was 29. So, and that was the first kind of thing I took on that was like a physical martial art that had more of a, you know, linear route, as it were. And yeah, man, learning to turn upside down in your 30s is dumb. I just want to say, exactly like when I got here, we were talking about risk perception as an adult. And when you're a kid, you're a bit more fearless. And as you get older, I'm a 30-year-old woman, like as I'm starting and I'm like, wow, going upside down. I know all the various ways in slow motion as I'm like trying to learn to do my first cartwheel, being like, I'm just, nope. And it's not a cartwheel. My legs are like here off the ground. I'm basically like kind of sitting on my elbows and it's not even a thing. And just that's pretty much been every new skill acquisition. It's like being so hyper aware of how incredibly difficult and how incredibly dangerous and how incredibly unskilled at the start I've always been. And I'm not a naturally physically gifted person. I have to work 10 times as hard to just pick up basic coordination things. But that is what kept me going. I was just like, ultimately, I've been handed this incredible opportunity to create representation where I didn't see it. And man, I wish I saw it when I was a kid. I would have been a crazy ass ninja by like the age of like 13. Even, you know, sports and things. Again, like what South Asian or MENA-Heritage sports people even now are there that young girls can look up to? So I'm like, I've got to start creating that change and just do my best, because even if I just change a couple of little girls' perspectives or older women's perspectives that, you know, our body doesn't stop at 30, which is the lie we're fed all the time, that women, you know, your physical capability is essentially like validated by your fertility. So ultimately, when you start having to look at your fertility dying down, that's when we're told via the patriarchy that our bodies stop. Fucking bollocks, man. Smash the glass ceiling, because if I can do it, and I couldn't touch my toes at 26, and I now like do the box split and I teach flexibility, and if I can do that, having had no prior experience, there is just, if you want it, you can absolutely do it. And I want other little girls to see that and just know. So no matter how hard it is, no matter how much harder I have to work, my culture really does play that part because of the lack of representation.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did the absence of seeing people like you on screen spark in you? But it sounds like it is your everything.
It is my everything, because that's all I really want to create. Whatever platform I end up using, whether it's stunts, acting, panel talks, being on amazing podcasts, like, you know, I just want other women, young, old, and, you know, any gender, essentially, any, like, whatever your proclivities are, like, I just want people to know how many lies we're fed about our limitations. And yeah, if there's a couple of little girls that kind of watch anything I'm in and go, oh shit, I could do that, or I want to do that, it's my whole thing.
Yeah. What did that journey look like for you when you were transitioning from more being on stage into going through that journey with stunts and then ending up in some really big films? It's
been a crazy 5 years, I'm not going to lie. Like, man, the transition happened really naturally, which I'm really grateful for. Like, I kind of started my stunt career when the pandemic was going on. So I started in the end of 2019, start of 2020. And ultimately, like, my other career, like live performing, had shut down. And then like I said, I was really lucky to get this opportunity with Nick Chopping at the end of 2019. And then sort of started training, but again, with no one to train with for the first like year or two of my stunt training, because everything was shut down. But just started training, and then the same coordinator, Nick, gave me an opportunity to do my first proper doubling job in summer of 2020. So yeah, it was just very, very natural, I'd say.
Was it something that your family supported you with from the get-go, or did you have to work quite hard for that?
So it's quite funny, because prior to stunts, obviously, I was throwing knives at people and breathing fire on stages in nightclubs. So my mum was bloody relieved. I was just like, Mum, I want to jump off buildings for a living. She was like, oh, thank God. Thank God there's some kind of safety parameters here, as opposed to you being around a bloody bunch of drunk cunts in Monte Carlo. So she was relieved. And for a little Indian lady to be relieved about you deciding to throw yourself off buildings for a living, like, that's got to say how insanely dangerous working in nightlife as like a weapons performer and a fire breather was. Yeah. Oh, she hated that.
I bet.
I was also in my pants, so, you know, not that I'm not in my pants, I'm very literally in my pants under here. I've sort of like gently done this for all of you guys. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, the context of all of it was such a big change. And she was just grateful. And yeah, man, mum was just the biggest supporter of pretty much anything I ever wanted to do. She's the only person through my life that gave me the conviction of limitlessness. So that's been phenomenal. Like the family support, luckily, considering, you know, where I come from, and they had me so much later. Like my mum had me at 48.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wild, right?
Amazing.
Wild. So, you know, when she had me so late, so she grew up back home, and she had all these kind of very different upbringings about what girls should do. But she was a little maverick. She was like, nah, send it, kid.
Absolutely love that. And you said your mum gave you that conviction of being limitless. Mm-hmm. Do you think you had that in you innately anyway, and your mum helped that come out of you?
I think it was all to do with her, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, I had an unlicensed sense of self-belief from like the age of 5. Crippling imposter syndrome, pendulously back and forth between the two, obviously, because, you know, anyone that is a creative mind, that is the burden you carry. You're never quite self-assured. But I think in terms of thinking that I was limited or being scared that I couldn't achieve something if I wanted it was not ever really in my system, and it was because of her. So really grateful. Mumsy was sick.
She sounds amazing.
Oh man, yeah, if I could be a quarter of the woman that she was, I would be winning at life.
Aww. How do you manage that pendulum swing of feeling like, yes, I can do everything, and then that other extreme swing to
Just terribly.
Any advice?
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I think constantly telling yourself that those kind of limiting voices in your head are just chatting shit. It's really, really hard, and self-love is such a perpetual journey. Nobody ever quite nails it. Do you know what I mean? Like no one ever quite really consistently gets it right. But for me, I'm just like, it's a bit like sun cream. You've got to apply that shit daily.
I love that. What a great analogy.
Thanks.
Oh my God, the one line from this episode.
You can have that.
So talk to us about life before stunts.
Yeah. What
got you into performing on stage, throwing knives, breathing fire? How did that come about?
It just doesn't get any weirder the further back it goes. So I, despite not the amount of parental pressure that you'd expect given what I'm about to say, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, quelle surprise. Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. And I kind of got veered into a creative path behind the camera, actually. I sort of got into doing makeup, and back then there was no social media. So then I got into taking photos of my work and like wanting to be a makeup artist, but not in a professional context. Because again, jobs in the arts were just not on the docket for me. I was just like, no way. But I was like, oh, I enjoy this. And I've always been creative. Like I've found some way to monetize my creativity from the age of like 15. Like I used to be a painter, and I used to sell my fine art, which was all like Arabic calligraphy. And then it kind of journeyed into makeup and like photography. And this is when I was about 17. So I kind of quickly realized, oh, I'm not going to get the grades for medicine. So I'm going to do a degree that I love and then go back and do a foundation year when I'm ready to be an adult. So I did classics and political philosophy. Wow. Which is vocational, very much, of throwing yourself off shit for a living. But I did that. And in the first year of studying, I got scouted for Playboy. Now, I had never been in front of a camera or done like a kind of, I was always behind the camera at this point. But one of my best friends at the time, Anne French, was like one of the main UK Playboy girls. So we would fly out to France and Switzerland with the official representatives of like the Playmates, essentially. And we'd be in the little outfits and we'd host the parties based on whatever like champagne sponsor it was. And then I saw performers on stage at those parties. I saw like fire breathers and all these like amazing burlesque girls. And I was like, that looks like so much fun. I'm going to do that. This is really boring. So... classic ADHD. I was like, oh, that. So I started training that, and at that point I met an ex of mine who was a circus strongman. So like, you know, curly moustache, bends frying pans for a living, that wore jodhpurs unironically on a daily basis. Nuts. And he had a bullwhip. And again, ADHD strikes, and I look at that and I'm like, wow, that looks cool, because he could like target things, and I was like, I really want to learn that. So that's kind of how that started, and then got very into Western arts very, very quickly. Like cowboy stuff became a really huge part of my life, and then, you know, that's how then the Heritage Dive and all of that happened, and we know the rest of that story. So
amazing. It's so crazy. Cool, like the different lives you've had along the way.
Yeah. I've had it. And also, you know, that was the next one I thought I was fucking straight, which is hysterical now. I'm like, oh, wow, you're a giant dyke, mate. And you knew from like the age of 8, come on, cosplaying straight for a long time.
At least he played his part in bringing you into the world you're in now.
He did. Thank you to the straight white men for possibly the first time that's ever been said in a podcast.
Ever. We can delete that bit out as well, by the way.
We can keep it, because then we won't get targeted by the incels.
Very true.
We're on your side.
Very true. So you said you came into stunt training later than most.
Yeah.
What were some of the steepest learning curves?
Horses.
Oh, tell me more.
Period.
Really?
Fuck me. Yeah. So, I mean, all of it, to be perfectly honest. Like I said, it's the steepest learning curves were doing such incredibly difficult skills to incredibly high levels, and the double-edged sword of being the first South Asian MENA-Heritage Stuntwoman in Europe was I was being handed lots of opportunities that were I was way too green for, but was expected to be so much better than any of my counterparts training, because, you know, you're the one. And the one of one kind of complex, while it gives you opportunity, it also creates this enormous fallacy that you are just capable. So that in general, actually, like being the first South Asian MENA-Heritage Stuntwoman was the steepest learning curve of stunts. It was like, oh my God, I have to really upskill so quickly to be at the level of what I'm being expected to do in these incredible opportunities. And I don't want to mess them up. I don't want to turn stuff down. And I had turned down so much stuff at the start of my career, because I would literally call it, in fact, one of my first major stunt jobs, the coordinator called me up and I spoke to her and she was like, yeah, you know, we'd love to get you in for a movement assessment, blah, blah, blah. This is what the thing is going to be. It's a big action series and she's a spy, and it's really, and I was literally sat there being like, this is my dream job. And I said to her, Nikki Berwick, who is again one of my favourite people in stunts, for giving me one of my other first big opportunities. And I said to her, just to let you know, Nikki, I've just started training. If you want someone that can even cartwheel, not your girl. Like, and that's a big thing to say. Do you know what I mean? When you're being offered like this mad opportunity. And she was just like, no, we'll train you on the job, and like took a chance on me, and it was fab. But yeah, like there's just so many things that I had to sort of learn really quickly when, you know, there's the one thing about the fear, but also aptitude changes as you get older. And that's not even just to do with risk factor or fear or an understanding that things are scary. Physically, like when you've not, you know, your ability to absorb things and your muscle memory is slower to adapt generally, especially when you've never had any sort of athletic base. So your brain has to create new neurons to like figure the hell out how to do a million things. But in terms of a skill set of all the ones I've learned, horses, because, you know, it's the only sport where it's a team sport and you don't speak the same language as your team, and it's really intense, and it's so about feel. And having never sat on a horse ever until I was 30, again, like I started all this stuff at 30, and now, you know, learning to then gallop while on a galloping horse, be upside down, and learning to trick ride at the moment, like from not being able to, like my horse, for example, I bought one very quickly because he was insane and I fell in love with him, which again, all of the steep learning curves, not even just in stunts but in kind of creating a better sense of the skill set, which so much of like horse work and, you know, what I was doing with horses, which I was training for the stunt register, I was like, right, well, this is a really intense thing to train and extremely expensive. And ultimately, once you get to a certain point past the like walk trot phase, you can't really progress as a rider unless you have your own. And for a lot of people that say we're riding as kids, you know, that skill set comes back a little bit easier and you can get by for the stunt register qualification in terms of, you know, what you need to learn. But for someone starting straight out, and again at 30, you can't. So it was never my intention to buy a horse, ever. Like, because, I mean, what tax bracket do I think I'm in? Like, for real. Okay. And I started learning on this psycho Welsh called Jimmy, who is my firstborn son now. And it's just the funniest story when we look at it, because my coach who owned him before she sold him to me, he was only unsold because he was deemed too fiery to ride. Really? And I turned up knowing fuck all about horses, and she knew that I was training Stuntwoman, and I'd explained to her like the syllabus and what I wanted to learn, and she sort of went, well, are you going to learn to ride or are you going to die? And she was like, she took this mad risk, but again, 50 years in horses, she somehow knew. that we would be a good match. And he's what made me as a rider, because I have been yeeted off in absolutely every possible circumstance.
Really?
And every time I've sat on a horse on set, I've been like, oh my God, it's just listening to me. What's going on? This is like sorcery. Because I had this big baptism of fire with Jimmy, which I wouldn't change for the world, because, I mean, he is my entire life. Like, he really is like my whole world. But that has been just overall the steepest learning curve, because it's not, with a lot of other skills, it is a lot about, you know, practicing the form and getting it into muscle memory. And then even with when you're dealing with opponents or like on a sports team, like fight IQ and things like that start to develop. But ultimately, one, you speak the same language, and you're not really usually, unless you're doing jiu-jitsu, sat on someone's back. So it's such a wild sport, in my personal opinion, from all the ones that I've learned. I'm like, to do that from scratch is big old, all the learning.
I mean, anyone who's not seen the Croydon Cowgirl needs to go and see you
Go
hanging
and watch it.
upside down on this horse. I was like, is that real?
Yeah.
Is that CGI? Is this actually happening?
You know what's mad as well about that, and the specificity of the Croydon Cowgirl for me and Jade, who are long form filmmakers. I mean, me as an actor, her as a director. And oh man, we really made our life really super difficult with this, because not only did Jade decided to shoot all of it on film in this kind of rising age of AI and CGI and all of these things. She was like, I want to be as authentic as physically possible. So she decided to shoot the whole thing on film, which again, when you see some of the shots, it's a little bit like, wow, that was a tall order, kid. And then she decided that, you know, narrative wise, we did this, as much as it's a short documentary about me, we wanted to like kind of put in this little like Hollywood stunt sequence where I'm like chasing this guy in a car. He's like the typical Western thing of like an arsehole finance wanker landowner comes in, tries to gentrify the land, and I'm obviously kind of the Croydon Cowgirl. I'm there on this horse land, and he's trying to build flats, so I chase him out of town. So that is the narrative. And given he's kind of turned up and left quicker than I've been able to gather whatever accoutrement that I'd need to actually like fuck a shit up, Jade decided, oh, can we do this thing where we have you like just completely lean off a horse by your ankle while it's galloping, and like sharpen a ring on the ground and then like key his car with it. And I was like, okay. So I then went to my amazing professional trick riding and instructing friends, Liz and Mike, of MCDC Stunts, and was like, can we do this? And we, in the space of a total of probably about 5 hours of training over 4 days. Again, they have dream horses though. Storm, who is the one that I rode for the Croydon Cowgirl, the stunt scenes, is like riding a cloud. He's the safest, most dreamy, big Frisian, gorgeous boy. So I knew I was safe. And I was with Liz and Mike, who were our horse masters. So in that realm as well, I was like, I'm safe because these are the people I trust most with horses.
Yeah.
So it was we did it all for real, and it was really intense.
Yeah. Other than learning how to ride upside down, how did the Croydon Cowgirl challenge you personally?
Oh man, I think trying to summarize the journey that I've had into a 5-minute format, I think was a challenge for both me and Jade, because we were trying to figure out, we've been trying to make this documentary for 5 years, and so much has changed about us and what the narrative would have first been if we had got the funding when we first met to make it. And where horses were this enormous part of my life, and like Levi's had reached out to Babes with Blades, me and Jade's kind of, were the co-conspirator runners of Babes with Blade, and we were just like, wow, we need a cowboy resurgence, because we talked about this. I've accidentally, I was cosplaying a cowboy in my career pre-stunts, and then I actually became a cowboy with Jimmy and with kind of everything around horses, and Levi's being the original cowboy brand. We were like, let's speak to that. So that's kind of what ended up happening. And also the juxtaposition, on first looking, but even just that as a metaphor for like my life. I was never really meant to be in the business that I'm in, but I've sort of gotten in there. So that's kind of what we wanted to play with, and we're both really pleased with it. We're like, if you've seen it, right? So
yes, I have.
Yeah, you guys watch it if you get a chance. It's very good. 5 minutes of your time it'll be worth it.
What sparked the creation of Babes with Blades, and what is the mission behind it?
Right. So again, Jade and I met because she slid into my DMs, which is how every good story starts. And she wanted to make a documentary about an Asian woman getting into stunts because, again, there's just not that much representation. She's Chinese Malaysian, and she was literally just like, even just East Asian women getting into stunts, there's like maybe 4 or 5 on the stunt register. And that she knew of in the stunt world in general. And she was really like kind of interested in like Michelle Yeoh's journey. She's from Ipoh, which is the same place Jade is from, and she was just fascinated watching this badass woman, but having not experienced anything in Western cinema of a similar kind of vibe. So she was like desperate to kind of find other women that were in that world. So she reached out to me to make a documentary about me. This was 5 years ago, which we obviously finally got to make this year, which has been incredible. And over those 5 years, we kind of have developed this very bizarre platonic life partner, best friend situation, and our kind of joint issue with the world that we were working in, which is like high octane action and all of those worlds. We're like, man, every time you see a woman in an action movie, it's a babe with a blade, which is like, she's got so little autonomy. The roles aren't pithy. She's got less clothes than she's got lines, always. I mean, give Wonder Woman a bloody scrunchie, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of born from a lack of representation of like maverick, interesting women in the action world. And we didn't really even understand how we were going to showcase that. We just knew that we wanted to make a difference with it. So it began kind of as this print magazine where we were like interviewing really cool women across like sport, fashion and action. And then it developed into its current iteration, which is ultimately like creating visuals, creating films, creating, you know, longer form content, trying to kind of be the representation that we can't currently see. And that's, yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
I mean, you mentioned there that in Hollywood and in action and in film in general, women of colour tend to get put into or typecast in a way.
Women in general, but definitely women of colour, yeah.
Yeah. What have you had to push back against, or how have you pushed back against that with your time in this world?
I think what's interesting with stunts is obviously you've not really got an amazing amount of autonomy because a majority of the time you're doubling somebody. But now as an actor, one thing that I'm very keen to do is not cosplay parts of my identity, especially culturally, and that's cross-board. It's not even just a case of with roles. Like, obviously I'm selective about like some of the stuff that's been given to me, some scripts that have been submitted to me, and you're just like, okay, a man that has very little experience with women wrote this. And that's been one of those things that I'm discerning about, even when at financial losses or perceived career losses or whatever, because it's, you know, by a cool director or by a cool casting director or whatever it might be. And I'm just like, I happen to be in this bizarre pocket of being representative of a lot of things, do you know what I mean? Of women, of South Asian women, of MENA-Heritage women, of queer women. I'm just like, it would be so remiss for me to take on roles while I'm trying to build this kind of like alternative world with Jade. So, you know, that's been kind of mostly what I've been discerning about. I've just been discerning about roles. And then when it comes to, again, I kind of straddle the worlds of fashion quite a lot as well, and like working with commercial brands. And again, like, if one more person asked me to do an activation for Diwali where I like wear a bindi, or like an Eid activation or something where I have to cosplay my identity rather than just being authentic and being given space because I'm a woman doing cool shit, yeah, it's tiring. I basically, the easiest way to sum that up ultimately is I will always journey towards representation that is untokenistic, because being tokenistic, despite the rise of diversity, I'm not going to be the type of woman, and nor should any other woman of colour be the type of woman that is kind of bending over backwards, just apologising for being there and being just, oh my God, thank you that I even get an opportunity. Like, we are valid, and it is so important that we understand our validity so that then commercial brands and filmmakers understand the validity, that it can expand outside of that one trope of your personality or your heritage. So yeah, just trying to approach things from a non-tokenistic perspective.
And when you have turned down roles because they felt tokenistic or they've not been aligned with your values, and you've given feedback as to why, how has that feedback been received?
I mean, the feedback is interesting because I think while I am obviously campaigning for furthering women's voices, the other thing that I've got to be very conscious of, and that, you know, I talk about quite a lot, is honey, not vinegar, catches the fly. And you do have to, in this process, because I'm not a big A-lister yet. So ultimately, and I say yeah on purpose because I'm trying, I'm trying. But wherever it is that I fall and whatever direction my career takes, ultimately the central vein of my purpose is to create visibility for young women. And you do not get that, we know, because patriarchy is such a strong part of our, you know, the paradigm at the moment, and fascism is on the rise, which is horrifying. But ultimately, in order to actually be heard, there is a level of diplomacy you still have to have. So while I still do everything with my whole chest, there's a level of diplomacy to be able to get to the point where I've accrued enough power to exact real change, rather than, you know, kind of throwing my toys out of the pram at a director that perhaps might not understand it. What I will sometimes do, or have done, is, while it's not my responsibility to do so, so for example, with like an activation around representation, in fact, I went into the L'Oreal offices to speak to them about representation for South Asian History Month and how they should be representing people. And those opportunities are opportunities where I can unbridled explain how not to be tokenistic. But generally the feedback has been some kind of historical, like, why don't you maybe look at this before you consider, or perhaps there's an expansion with this role that could be helped by this knowledge. I love her, but, you know, I would want to bring this element into it. And again, that has been very few and far between that I've even had kind of the audacity to be able to give that feedback. But that's been the most pronounced version of it that I've been able to do. Otherwise, most of the time I'm just like, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm busy. I lie.
Low-key love that.
Yeah, oh man, I lie about being busy all the time. Nah, that's a joke. But I have lied maybe 3 times about being busy when I have been.
Totally fair. Yeah. How have you handled that pressure of being one of one?
Can I say terribly again? No, I'm joking. I actually haven't handled it terribly. I've managed to keep out of a psych ward. So I think,
cloud.
Yeah, man. Marginally, like razor sharp margins of not being committed. I think honestly it's my environment. Like, I've managed to surround myself with incredible women and incredible men, actually. I think just people in the last couple of years, after sifting through all the kind of pick me characteristics when you're entering a new career, of just being like, I must be loved by everyone, and everyone that doesn't love me and is toxic, I must convince them I'm brilliant, and I must and jump through loopholes and try and find ways to dim my own light in order to just fit into rooms. And it's, oh man, it's been so emancipating over the last couple of years, just finding the right people that allow me to just feel like enough all the time. And all of us kind of mutually feed each other with this, because all of us are in entertainment, and we all feed each other with this kind of, yeah, it's crazy, but that doesn't say anything about you. And realizing that this whole entire world of acting, stunts, film, fashion, everything's so about subjective rejection. And if you take it as an objective fact of you being rejected and conflate your potential with your current surroundings and your current availability, or the current availability of roles that are relevant to you, you'll just go insane. And stunt world and acting world is not for everyone, and that's not because of talent. A lot of that is because it will chew you up and spit you out if you let it. And your environment, your immediate environment, is the most important thing, because while other people with more stable jobs or more stable income can almost afford a level of flippancy with who they have around them, you can't as a creative. It is imperative that you keep the type of people around you that expand you and make you happy and make you feel like enough. So that's been, I think, the biggest way that I've managed to protect myself, because we're pack animals as humans. You can't be a lone wolf, especially not in this industry. You have to surround yourself with the right community. Community is the saviour.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a brilliant piece of advice for everyone in all walks of life.
All walks of life.
But that bit you said there that's really stuck with me is someone's subjective opinion or rejection of you is not objective.
Nope.
It doesn't mean that's who you are or you're not good enough. But I feel like as humans, it's one of the biggest things we struggle with is rejection.
Oh, God. And it's the most rife part of being a performer in general. Rejection and understanding that that's okay. And for that, you know, one of my friends, Pip, who's an amazing actor and used to be this incredible rapper, I mean, he still is a rapper, but just doesn't perform anymore, Scroobius Pip, and he gave me a fantastic bit of advice where he's like, even if you don't get the role, for any self-tape or any audition or whatever that you go into, that role is yours for that script moment, for those couple of minutes, that's yours. And that's what you walk away with. Every time I do a self-tape, every time I face a rejection, I'm like, I had that though. It's never a rejection. It's just, you were not right for this, but it was yours for that little moment. And that's how there is just no such thing as a loss anymore. Because I'm like, I got to be that person for that second, for that audition. I got to walk into that stunt audition and play, you know, a Marvel character. And that's again been like some really important advice that's kind of saved me a bunch of times, of realizing that rejection is so subjective and you don't know the reasons. You never know the reasons. There's no feedback half the time.
It's the hardest part.
Oh,
Give me some constructive criticism at least, so I know why.
But that's the funny thing, because it's not constructive, because it's just, you are not right for that part. They've pictured something else because they've given birth to a character in their head already, and you're a brilliant actor or a brilliant stunt person. Sometimes you're shit, factually, but you know, the majority of the time it's not, you know, once you get to a certain level, it's not because you are terrible or unpracticed. It's because they've already given birth to a concept in their head and you don't quite align. It's trying to kind of put a square peg in a round hole. And again, it's that concept of just like, you know, if you judge a bird by its ability to swim based on a fish, like, what the hell? Like, that's just nonsensical. And that's I think personally what I try to apply to myself and like other stunt friends or actor friends, where I'm just like, that's how you've got to see it. It's just a round peg in a square hole.
Such good advice.
Yay.
Love it.
I'm glad. I tried my best.
Is there a particular stunt or project that felt like a real pivotal moment in your career?
Deadpool.
Really?
Yeah, man. Shit. I mean, getting to not double somebody and I'm Marvel Psylocke right now. Like, I'm an X-Man, like permanently. 7-year-old me would be losing her damn shit right now. Oh, man. And I came into that project late. So it's a funny story with Deadpool, because I auditioned for it in like the April of that year. I thought I did all right because it was swords, and swords is kind of my thing, and I had a really fun time. And my partner, who I was doing the choreography with, kind of fucked it up at the end, and she gave me the biggest shiner in the middle of my head, but it was on the death strike where she was just supposed to pass me, but she hit me dead in the forehead, right? So I did the dead, and then I kind of sprung up, and the entire room was like there was this like mutual inhale of breath of everybody being like, what the hell, because it was so big immediately. I was fine. I was probably concussed, but I was having a lovely little time. I was just like, I'm fine. What's going on? Put ice on it and whatever, but I mean, it was memorable, it was funny. And then I got a callback for a different role. I got a callback for what I now know was the role of Lady Deathstrike. And again, I walked into the audition, and I don't often get this feeling, but I walked in and I was like, oh, I feel really good about that. And then when I didn't get it, and that was in, I think, June, I was so crippled and confused in a lot of ways. And usually I don't really feel like that about roles in general. I was like, no, there's something in me that's saying that I got this and I don't know what's happened. And then fast forward to November, because we had the strikes in that time, the writer's strikes. So they kind of came into a hiatus for a while. And then when they went back in November, a whole bunch of things changed round. And I got a message being just like, oh, can you come in for kind of another audition? And I'm sat there being like, bruv, you've seen me twice. Like, can you just give it to me, or just tell me to fuck off? Like, what is going on? But I went in, and they had said to me like a couple of things or whatever. And for the first audition, I didn't take in any of my weapons because I just thought we'd be doing choreography. And at the end of that, they had a section for like, if anyone wants to show some special skills, showcase your shit. And I didn't bring anything. I felt so stupid about it. So when I got this one, they hadn't told me much about the character, but I put my bullwhip in my bag. And it's so, again, you know, when it's sometimes things happen with fate, turned up, and they were explaining what I had to do. And they were like, right, well, this character comes out and she gets this psychic whip, and she like throws it this way, and she grabs onto this person's like backpack or arm or whatever, and she yanks them downwards. And I was like, okay, do you want to see how it happens in real life? And I literally got my whip out and demonstrated it on the stunt coordinator. And I was just like, do you want to put your arm out and I'll show you how it happens? And it was like one of those like really vindicating moments. I was so excited. And then when I went in, because I was like the last stunt performer to come on, I was like a loose part. I didn't get any roles, like any proper big fight scenes with like the main actors. And I was just sort of like, oh, like I'm really like a spare part here. This is really a bit upsetting. But I had that one moment with like X-23 that I knew was coming up. But again, we shot for like 3 months and it came up right at the end. So the whole time I was just like, and even with where they put me, right? So they had all the other bad guys, all the other X-Men around Cassandra Nova, like the main bad guy. And I was popped off in a corner, like under a stairs. And I was like, oh man. Also, I was the only character that it was in the thottiest outfit known to man, given we were shooting in January, right? So everybody else had all these great costumes with like thermals underneath. This little bastard is in crop top, hot pants and like heeled boots. And I'm like, why?
Oh, God.
So the whole thing just felt like this kind of almost like, not anticlimactic, because I'm on a Marvel set and I'm playing an X-Man, but I really thought I was going to be a spare part. Then we went to the cast and crew screening. Obviously I took Jade and I got kind of one of the most covered characters. Like, it was crazy. Like, a lot of people's, which is so sad, a lot of people's amazing fights got cut, but for the sake of the narrative and whatever, you know, the editing room floor takes away so much sometimes. And me and my amazing friend Billy Clements and Danny Ramos, who played Toad, and Billy played the Russian, the three of us got the most screen time of all the X-Men. And we were just like, as in the bad guys, and Jade walked out the screening with me, and the first thing she said to me, she was like, are you going to stop thinking it's a mistake now? And I was like, shit. Because I knew kind of at that point that I had to really shed my imposter syndrome and stop thinking that the career that I'd built over 5 years was just like walking into rooms and being like, do they know they hired me? Am I getting away with this? Like, and you know, I just, at that point, I made like a really big dedication to myself to be like, stop apologizing for yourself. You're humble enough to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. You're honest. But your career is not a mistake. Like, you're enough, basically. You're enough, and you need to just focus on that mentality rather than letting your environment destroy you all the time, even when you're on an amazing Marvel set and you're sat there feeling like you're not able to enjoy that present moment. And so much of that is because of that constant engulfing of like what rejection feels like or what rejection means and the echoes that it might have in our day-to-day experiences. Even when, like I said, my first time on a Marvel set, like, I'm stood behind Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, and like, you know, it's, the whole thing was like so mind-blowing. So yeah, I think making me more present in whatever the opportunities are by actually thinking to myself, okay, it's not a mistake now. So Deadpool was like a big pivot for me.
Amazing. How cool is that though, that even during the process, okay, on one side it's not cool because you weren't able to fully enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that side you said you would change if you could go back, but also you're so unaware of what was about to happen next.
So unaware. And you never know. You just never know. You could, and you know, on the other, like I said, on the converse side of it, you get, some of my friends had the most amazing fight scenes, and I was just sat in the back watching, being like, sick, that's going to look so good. And you see it on camera and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. And for whatever reason, and again, this is what I mean, where we loop back to that concept of rejection not being based around talent. Because I'm watching these guys who are far senior to me as stunt performers and literally doing like a million spinning kicks and all these incredible moves with the sword and going, that's going to be sick. And I've seen it on camera being like, that has the most merit of the entire time I've been filming here, and then it doesn't make it. And that's not to do with them not being good enough. That's to do with the director's vision for the, you know, feature film just being different and not necessarily including that epic bit of skill. Yeah. So even just watching stuff like that sometimes really concretes that in me to be like, rejection is not personal.
No.
Not in film.
In lots of areas of life as well. When it comes to work.
Yeah.
Anyway. You've spoken about not wanting female action role models to just be vengeful victims.
Yes.
What does a fully realised action heroine look like to you?
Hasn't happened yet. I'm trying to make it happen.
How would it look when you make it happen?
I think, again, film is the most collaborative art form, in my personal opinion, because there are so many departments that almost go unaccounted for, and so, or at least just underappreciated, like the art department, to, you know, costume, to how stunts work, to how the actors work, to how the AD works, to how production assistants works, to the runners, to the catering. Like, it is such an enormously collaborative process. And then when you go all the way up to the creative levels, you've got the writer, you've got the director, you've got the producer, you've got potentially like a franchise brand or something of that nature involved. So there are so many cooks in, which I don't think spoils the broth in this one case with film. Sometimes it can. But ultimately there are just so many facets to that world that I would almost, like, trying to imagine what that would look like feels like something I want to do organically while being there. But I would quite like to do a gay Yellowstone.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah, gay Yellowstone, man.
That would be so cool.
Yeah. Where I'm obviously like Rip.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I have like a really hot Beth, and I get to ride horses and do mad shit. But that's very, you know, that's just me like narcissistically throwing all the things that I want to do onto camera.
Put it into the universe, make it happen.
Or like, you know, like a John Wick with a female character that's not ballerina, because again, tornado kick in a silk dress, like, listen, amazing, but we can create better action roles for women that don't revolve around that, or revolve around like pale imitations of like male franchises. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something where, yeah, like where the woman's story isn't, like her journey into action also doesn't evolve from victimhood. It's not her dad being killed or she's been raped or like, you know, something of that nature, like an alternative pathway to why she found action and why she is great at action. That would be amazing to see. I'd love to see/be part of it, because I would like to pretend I'm less of an egomaniac than I am, but I'm not. I want to be in it.
And you said that you've also spread out into fashion, you're in film. How important is it to you to bring all of that together to challenge this genre? It's,
that it is literally, it's a false dichotomy that they have to be separate. I think any version of what we create, especially through Babes with Blades, is all of that. And that's also why we've got so much coverage in like Dazed and, you know, Show Studio. We got Show Studio coverage, which never happens for narrative, for our like first short film that we did with The Standard called Split, about these two best friends kind of splitting the bill. And neither of them wanted to split it. It's very Asian of me and Jade. And, you know, the fight gets very physical, and that was made to promote the cocktail menu for The Standard. And it got, like I said, because of the extremely like stylized fashion aesthetic that Jade and I have naturally, both of us have that. It just kind of permeates through our work by accident. I almost don't think about fashion entering anything. It just is. So I think it's almost like it would just go hand in hand.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have already seen signs of change and progression? Let's talk about predominantly in action, or do you feel like there's still quite a long road ahead?
I think it's both. I think there's definitely a long road ahead, and currently, I mean, obviously the political climate of the world is terrifying for women in general, because the rise of fascism always creates a issue with women's rights, which we're seeing globally anyway. So that can be problematic in what is then given access to and what is popular commercially. But I will say it is changing a little bit. Like one of my favourite, who's a friend of mine, one of my favourite actors to watch at the moment is Katie O'Brien. And she's been given all these amazing roles because of who she is and because of how she represents on camera. And she is this incredibly strong queer woman that is not, you know, this in a dress doing a tornado kick, which is my classic. I know it feels like a, you know, very specific, but it's more just like a bracket kind of example of the general version of action that you tend to see in any kind of polished version of action so far. And Katie's roles have been so incredible to watch, like her in Love Lies Bleeding, in the upcoming Edgar Wright film Running Man. She is a marvel to watch, and it's so exciting to see roles like that developing. And then I always get her name wrong, but it is Pom, and she's in Mission Impossible. I always get her last name wrong. But again, she is another, you know, not typically commercial looking, incredible woman that, you know, is almost androgynous with a lot of the characters that she portrays, doing these wicked action roles that are actually, they're not around a victimhood complex. And while like none of her characters thus far that I've seen have had much backstory, there isn't a victimhood that is even expressed in her presenting her characters or in the way the narrative has like wound around her. So it is definitely changing, and there are definitely really amazing, exciting directors and writers that are creating roles for women. But yeah, there is a lot of work to do.
Has it ever felt like too much work that you've wanted to quit?
All the time, but it's just not an option. Like I'll just have a bit of a cry. I love a cry. I love a cry.
Oh my god, crying is the best.
Well, you know what? I spent so many years of, especially in my 20s, desperately trying to beat my chest into masculinity, or like the version of this toxic masculine, I'm not going to cry and I'm not going to do this and I'm going to suppress all my feelings. And I think enough trauma happened in the last 5 years that I had no choice. And it's been the thing that has been the galvanizer of all of my real strength. The way I tend to describe it is I used to walk around in really heavy sheet armor and be like, beat my chest and be like, yeah, sheet armor. And it got absolutely wrecked. Like, it got strewn to pieces in the battle of, you know, trauma and grief and all the things that happen as you grow up. And, you know, when you face difficulty, and I'm kind of looking at all these bits of metal, and I had to sew them together as chainmail. And now the armor I walk around in is movable, and it's chainmail, and it's softer. It's perceived as softer because it's not this big, clunky, overbearing thing. But that's the real strength. It's all these little interwoven moments, all of these moments of vulnerability that allow you to have this real strength moving through the world. And again, the right community, being able to be that soft, sensitive girl that I actually am, despite most of my interests involving violence. I'm a big old softie. I love a little cry, man. Like, I love a cry. It's one of my favourite things to do when I'm feeling like it's all too much. And again, then get on the phone to like Jade or Pip or Varada, like my amazing kind of, and there's so many other people, my network of friends, and just talk about it, which I think is really underrated. Just, you know, problem shared is a problem halved, and all of those like very basic tropes, but they're really true. And like I said, community is really what gets you through, and understanding that vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength.
Yeah. Say that louder for the people at the back.
For the people. Have a cry, guys. Have a bloody cry on me.
Have a cry. What is it that keeps pulling you back in those moments where you do want to quit?
That central vein that's always there, that I've got to do it. It's not about me. It's not about me. Even if I fail, do you know what I mean? Even if I do a version of failure where I don't quite make where I want to be, I can go to my deathbed knowing I gave it my darndest. And there is no other version of reality that I can even understand now, because along the journey, and it's not about the destination, along the journey, like every panel talk that I do, or every podcast that I come on and speak to other amazing people, every bit of cinema that I'm in, every bit of longer form content, or even shorter form content, or pictures, or things in magazines, whatever it is, it creates ripples. Like, somebody can see that and it can create ripples, because it's done that for me so many times over, with just seeing something and it absorbing in a certain way and creating a process of me questioning where my own joy comes from. Because I mean, that's the key to everything, really. It's like finding joy. And I think that's really what it just always pulls me back. I'm just like, this isn't just about me. I have to, and I think honestly that's the way for anyone in life. You can't make it about you. Like, one of the biggest gifts in life, in my personal opinion, is responsibility. Because when it is just about you, you're going to be bloody miserable, mate. We're pack animals, like I keep saying. Community, and actually understanding your role in the kind of macrocosm, rather than constantly thinking about yourself, because no man's an island. It gets bloody lonely, and you've got to have a purpose outside of yourself, especially when it is such a difficult job, because your own singularity, your own kind of careerist ambitions are never going to be enough to sustain the amount of like resilience you need, especially in this industry.
When you feel such a heavy sense of responsibility, which is a gift and it is a privilege, have there been
sucks
times,
sometimes though.
Well,
oh my God.
But have there been times where you felt a pressure to keep pushing your limits rather than pulling back, and as a result risking injury?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think there'll always be cyclic moments of that, because the stakes raise a lot of the time, you know, especially when you progress in your career, which I've been lucky enough to do in the last 5 years. It's been amazing. So you start feeling pressure to push yourself more and to go harder, or to, you know, do things that are riskier. But again, ultimately, that sun cream reference of, as long as I centrally know I'm enough, I've trained enough, I've done this enough, I've evaluated enough risk factors, that's where I sort of come back to, where I'm like, okay, I'm enough. And that might mean that I've got enough in my brain or my physical capabilities to bring all of that together in this moment and fucking send it. Or I could go, no, I'm enough, and I don't need to do that to prove something. So enough is kind of my one word that I use all the time. The context changes, but I need to constantly know that I'm enough, and I have to tell myself that, and people around me, like I said, we all need to explain that to each other all the time, because it can be hard to take into account.
For any women listening, or young girls, or someone who's looking to transition careers at a later stage of their life, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Send it.
Send it.
Send
I
it.
love that. When it's all said and done, what impact do you want your career and activism to leave for the next generation?
Joy. That's it. Just joy. Literally that. Whether it's joy in somebody seeing something that they've not seen before in a context, or somebody like reigniting their passion for a sport, or just literally a moment where somebody just like looks across something and goes, wow, sick. Whether it inspires their own joy in that moment or has like an echo of, I want to seek more joy. That person looks really happy doing this amazing thing. I want to do more of that in my life. So everything, while joy seems like such a simple word, that really is my utter purpose, and it really does govern everything I do. And again, even just with all those questions that we've talked about regarding like, how do I balance the imposter syndrome and kind of the often God delusion when you get to a thing where you're like, oh, that was sick actually. And all of that, just balancing everything and rejection and all of those kind of things. That's it. I'm just like, is this making me happy? Can I still feel the connection to joy? Am I tethered to that central joy node in my body? And if it's not, I've got to make some choices, and I've got to be really honest with myself about what I'm doing. And that's happened in roles sometimes. Like I've been offered, again, you know, when it comes to turning things down, which is a privilege, but also sometimes a savior of knowing, okay, this isn't making me happy anymore, or the parameters around this are not making me happy. And I have to challenge my own opinion of myself and know that I'm worth more. And the only thing, like I said, that I think about in terms of worth is it giving me joy? That's the only important thing ever.
If you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, okay. So younger self's a big one, right? Like, because 5-year-old baby me, I'd be like, we're okay, kid. We're going to be okay. Teenage me, I'd be like, keep going, kid. I know this is shit, but you're going to be okay. 5 years ago me, you're enough. You're enough. Use that as your center. You're enough. Keep going. Keep working hard, but you're enough. So it's like, kind of depends which younger me we're asking, because I think it's quite hard to like give a blanket statement, isn't it, over older, younger me? Like, what would I say to her? But yeah, ultimately that, I think.
You are the first person who's ever answered that in different stages of life.
Really?
Yeah, the first person.
I like that.
I love that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, because I think it's such a... I've been asked that question loads as well, obviously on panels and things. I think this is also the first time I've said it like that. But there's been this year, man, this, without getting like into the older like trauma dumping, it's been a wildly challenging year. I mean, the last 5 years have been like quite a lot of condensed trauma. But again, galvanized my journey, man. Like I'm so grateful for all of it, because the proof of resilience in me and the people around me, and how safe I am and how loved I am, and how outside of my career, you know, like understanding that my job, while it means everything to me, it isn't everything. You know, I am not my work. I am not my sexuality. I'm not my race. I'm not my position in the world. I'm just little baby Ayesha, grown up a little bit. And I try to apply that as far as like I think about it. I'm just like, you're just baby Ayesha, bro. Like, you're just a girl, innit? Like, you are actually just a girl. And yeah, it's a hard old thing to navigate, but I think while it's been so hard, it's forced me to like reevaluate what I think is important and what conversations I need to have with myself and who I need to readdress. And I can't leave those versions of myself in the past, because they all total to me. And my God, am I grateful for the woman I've become, because I'd be able to go back and protect all of those little girls, like from the age of 5 all the way through till 5 years ago me. And that gratitude makes me go back and want to just hug all of them and be like, kid, we got it. We got this. Just keep, I promise you, man, we're going to get there. And even now, like I said, wild ass year. This is the closest I've probably come to being committed in my entire life. This whole year has like tested me, but it's also, again, like given me that ultimate sense of, I am so grateful. I am so surrounded by love and joy and all of the things that I want to see in the world. And, you know, whether I'm financially stable or I'm working on set all the time or doing the jobs that I want to do, none of that actually matters. What matters is I get to go back and protect those kids. And I'm so grateful that I can. So that's, yeah, the younger me's, yeah, you got shit, it's cool, we're good. And I think everyone should do that. I think everyone should have conversations with their previous selves, because I've only done it, honestly, in the last, because I was almost asked, every single panel I've ever been on, I've been asked that question. Even when we had the screening for Korean Cowgirl, and I didn't have that answer. It's always been something along the lines of, I'd go and tell, I was very focused on like baby me. And then it's so interesting because then you take into account that there's been so many iterations of life where you've needed yourself now, like the version of yourself that exists now, to go back and hold the kid's hand, or to give him a pat on the back, or to pull their chin up and be like, it's going to be all right. And I think all of us need to have moments of reparenting in that way. I think it's so important, and it's helped me so much this year. And yeah.
Such a powerful answer.
Yay.
Thank you so much. You have been amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
Oh, I'm glad.
Had a lovely little time.